Jeff Launderville is an academic administrator in Springfield. He's actually lives in South Hadley. He's written a book called The Filter. It's a book that'll help you how to protect yourself from bullying, including protecting your kids and your teenagers and saving you from depression. He's on the phone with us right now. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. Good to be with you.
Thanks for coming on, Jeff. Your website says that The Filter helps explain your own concept of self and better understanding and how your personality developed. Describes the importance of taking control of your own life and the impact that can be made on your decisions by making intelligent changes. So is this book, in other words, written more for the bully victim?
Well, you know what? It's written to help teenagers in any situation that they feel any type of negative feelings, whether it's anger, sadness, confusion, frustration. And, yeah, it's mostly for the victim of a bully, but it's not just for bullying. It's for perspective, self-esteem, feeling fear. You know, teenage years are very confusing for a lot of kids, and they feel like they have a lack of control, whether it's depression, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness. And it helps them understand where that lack of control comes from and then gives them back the control of their mind, because it's not what people say to you, it's what you say to yourself when they stop talking that's most important.
Well, if you take that approach, then I assume you could say, well, the book would also be helpful for those who are bullying, since so often these kids are bullying because there may be something else missing in their own lives that causes this kind of behavior.
You're exactly right. You know, my quest and my motive of writing the book, which I wrote, about 5 years ago, and finally got it published within the last year or two, is to help teenagers understand this confusing time in their lives, whether they're feeling angry, like I said, or sadness. And it's for all teenagers to feel more control, most like I said. So it's for every aspect. You know, there's a lot of books out there about success and being positive and what we should do as teenagers or what we should do as people in general in society, but not enough to give them the idea of, well, how can we enter these positive things in our mind and unclog the negative things that are holding us back from being our true potential or understanding where everything comes from. And that's what I want to do. I want to unclog and get rid of all that junk that lives in teenagers' minds, that negative feelings, by understanding where it comes from and how they can sift through it to make a better life for themselves and feel better for themselves, so they don't have to feel the sadness, the anger, the depression that I think we all feel, not only in our teenage years, but as we get to be young adults, and avoid making bad decisions in life. And of course, the Phoebe Prince thing is an extreme case. I feel horrible for her family, and my condolences, of course, go out to them.
You know, it's funny, though, with what you're talking about and describing here, it could easily have been read by the bullies in the hopes that they might have changed their behavior also, but they say that the difference in a lot of the bullies today versus the ones when we were kids is it's no longer the kid who is bullied or has a bad life or, a self-loathing or things like that. Now, the bullies tend to be the popular kids, the jocks, the pretty girls, the ones who back in our days weren't really bullies. They were just snobs.
You're right. It does seem to be that way. And one of the main reasons is this might sound kind of different, but I think even they feel a certain kind of pressure. I know that sounds strange because why are we saying they feel pressure when they have everything going for them? But in your teenage years, whether you're the top goal scorer, winning, getting all the touchdowns, or the victim of bullying, I think all teenagers feel pressure and trying to understand they're going through emotions. And these emotions sometimes are so dangerous because emotions aren't always in tune with their intelligence. And I think that's where, the bullying sometimes comes from. I think there's where a lot of teenagers react many different ways, whether it's extreme cases or whether it's minor cases. I think they come from emotion, sadness, anger, frustration, and they act out, whether, like I said, whether it's extreme or not or minor. But that's the issue. And the pressure that the most popular feels is also something that they're not understanding where they are, who they are, and where it comes from, and how to handle, whether it's the popularity or whatever they're handling in life.
This is Jeff Launderville, the author of The Filter. Are you suggesting that negative thoughts, negative feelings, almost invite this kind of bullying? Or does it invite more negative, more negative experience?
Yeah, I am. But what I'm saying is when you have your mind, which in the filter, I refer to it as the filter being part of your mind and how you need to unclog your filter. You make bad decisions because that filter needs to be cleansed and purified of what needs to happen. So to have good thoughts, good things come from you, whether you're 15 or 50 years old, you really need to come from a good place. And if you're full of all this negative things that have happened to you throughout your life, or what people have said to you, or what people have done to you, or just the lack of control or frustration of not knowing to do with all these emotions, then you can come at life and hurt people in many different ways. So I want teenagers to understand they have more control than they think they do. And the control they have is over their mind, their thoughts, of what they say, and more importantly, what people say to them, and how to understand that. You know, there's an old saying that we've all heard, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, I think that's very untrue. And the reason why I say that is sticks and stones may break your bones, but, you know, bones heal. Bruises go away, scars heal. You may have a scar. But you know what? The bottom line is names is what scars people, because that's what sits in our minds for many years and makes us come at life from a bad, bad place. And I want to try to help teenagers as much as possible. And I've been doing that for the last 15 years in different parts of education. But ultimately, I wanted to be the person I wish I could have turned to when I was in school. And that's why I went into education. That's the reason I wrote the book. And that's why I go around the world speaking to teenagers and faculty members about the importance of helping teenagers understand what they're going through by where they came from.
You know, you're talking about the idea of what you're talking about with this book sounds like a great idea in that it addresses the individual and helps them to better understand themselves and their feelings and their actions. But does it address a group persona? Because A, peer pressure becomes such a big thing in high school, and B, you could take every one of these bullies, for instance, any one of these 6 kids that have been indicted in South Hadley, and sit down with them, and probably by themselves, you would be hard-pressed to imagine the behavior that they participate in as a mob. And it's oftentimes the mob mentality of bullying that allows it to continue and get so bad. Is there a way to address an individual's mob mentality?
Well, I think you're exactly right. It's a very good point you bring up. I think an individual joins a group, no matter what that group is, positive or negative, to belong to a group. That sense of belonging, whether it's a mob mentality, like you said, whether it's the situation, of course, that happened in South Hadley and what's going on now, or a positive group, whether it's a team and stuff like that. People want to belong. They want to feel value. They want to feel like people are with them. They want to feel that sense of we have something in common. And sometimes, which is awful, and comes from that bad place that I want to unclog with the filter, and I talk about it in the book, it can be very negative, the place they come from. You know, there's a reason why people join gangs. They want to belong. It's the wrong thing. It hurts people, but there's a reason behind it. And I want to get into that reason why kids and teenagers choose negative gangs to belong to, negative groups to belong to. They're lacking something. And sometimes they need to just sift through and unclog their filter of what they're lacking and understanding. It's more of an understanding of who they are, where they come from, and where they're going that makes these decisions so crucial in their teenage years.
So you wrote this 5 years ago?
Well, I wrote it over the last 5 years, and yeah, I would write it, I would go back, write some more, and ultimately it was to help teenagers because every day I see teenagers going through a lot. And I've actually used the filter concept myself. I grew up in a difficult situation, but we all have our story. And so what I wanted to do in my teenage years into my early 20s was figure out what happened, where was I going, that kind of stuff. So I started doing the filter concept myself. And I said, you know what? This is really interesting what I'm going through here. I wonder if I can go back to high schools and teach kids what I've learned through myself.
Yeah. It's kind of ironic that you started it 5 years ago, and unfortunately we've been cursed with having two different suicides right within a 10-mile period here, 10-mile radius here in the Springfield area.
You're right. It's very ironic. But in the same case, I did it 5 years ago, and I didn't do it for the case of bullying. I didn't do it for these situations. It's just pure coincidence, for lack of a term. But you know what? It just shows that a lot of kids are going through a lot of difficult times, and that my mind was in the right place of trying to help teenagers. You know, this book has a lot to do with bullying, but it has more to do with how do we help teenagers understand and take more control of their life. So, you know, the whole situation of what's happened over the last couple of years with the, of course, awful suicides that these kids have gone through is pure coincidence in that sense. But the bottom line is there's always been room to help kids.
I think it's probably, you know, responsible us to point out that even if you do use the filter method here, this is really about learning coping skills. It does not mean that bullying will stop for you if you happen to be the victim, but you would have the ability to maybe cope with it better, so that we don't get involved in more suicides or kids turning to drugs or alcohol to anesthetize themselves from this kind of pain.
Absolutely. And this isn't, believe me, I am not coming at this and saying this is the answer for all bullying. Not at all. What I'm saying is if we want to help teenagers, there's a lot of, like I said before, there's a lot of books about success and, think positively and don't let people get to you and all these things that people say. But the bottom line is it's difficult for kids to understand that because they have so much negativity in their mind. So we need to get that out of there, filter that out, unclog that junk that's in their mind, and then you can enter the good things, these positive things, to help their life. And that's hopefully what the book's about. I wanted to do it my whole life. I'm very excited about it. And the filter goes through how you improve your life. If you're a victim of any circumstance, of any negative behavior, whether it's abuse, whether it's abandonment, whether it's bullying, whether it's anything, any negative stuff, how do you get rid of that and take more control of your life so you can have a better life?
I think that beeping we were hearing a minute ago is your battery dying. The filterbook.net is the website. You can go on there and see all kinds of information about the book and even pictures of Jeff, who seems to favor the sweater over the shirt look. Is that right, Jeff?
No, that just happened to be the look at the time.
Okay. Okay. I've always been miffed by the whole sweater over the shirt thing.
Jeff Launderville, okay. We appreciate the time today, Jeff. Best of luck with the book.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
You bet. It's 7:24 with Bax and OBrein at Rock 102.